My name is Sharon Hirsch, and today is Tuesday, October 6th, 2020, and we are just 1 month away from the next presidential election. We've been wondering together if this could be a healing season for our wounded country. Well, it's not looking that good, is it? Last week, COVID-19 was at the top of the headlines again as we learned the president and his closest allies have the virus. Social media was immediately flooded with messages of support and of hate. We watched the first presidential debate in this election, and it too fueled division and disillusionment, leaving many more resolute in their upcoming vote, and some unsure if it's even worth voting. I want you to consider this question today. What if you've already voted? If you believe it's impossible for someone on the other side of the political aisle to be a follower of Jesus, you have already voted. If you believe anyone deserves to die from the coronavirus, you have already voted. If you believe it's okay to cut someone off in traffic just because they have the other candidate's bumper sticker on their car, to vandalize someone's property because they support a certain cause or social issue, to call someone stupid or an idiot because of perspective, you have already voted. If you are filled with panic or hopelessness at the thought of a potential outcome from this next election, you have already voted. You have voted for yourself. And your anger, condemnation, anxiety, justification of certain words or actions, hopelessness, your personal offendedness reveals your vote. Your belief that others have wronged you and need to give an account to you because you're the judge. The New Testament in Romans chapter 2 talks about this vote. It says if you think you're on the high ground where you can point your fingers at others, think again. Every time you criticize someone, you condemn yourself. Judgmental criticism of others is a well-known way of escaping detection in your own crimes and misdemeanors. Imagine a world where everyone votes for themselves, thinks they are right in the judge, where everyone does what is right in their own eyes. Well, that's not too hard to imagine, is it? It is the world we have already voted for. The world of truth, beauty, and goodness does not come by convincing people you are right at any cost and trying to cram your truth down their throats. I'm reading from my new book, Belonging, Finding the Way Back to One Another. Jesus set a world of truth, beauty, and goodness in motion when he was crucified. And he invites us to join him, to cast our vote for him this way. In Matthew 16:24, he says, if any one of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross and follow me. What if we cast our vote, enter every conversation, interact with others that we disagree with a cross on our backs? Well, before we file that away as just a platitude, we need to remember that crosses are for getting crucified by those who may hate us because we love them. At the beginning of this process, I ask you to take a piece of glass and a hammer and break it into 100 little pieces to represent the brokenness in this world, and maybe the brokenness in you caused by all this division and distance and disconnection. All this woundedness. It can be like getting crucified. Crosses are for carrying another person's brokenness. Sometimes the wounds of those who've hurt us, because love always leaves a mark. It's easier to be personally offended than to be crucified. It's easier to be personally offended than to invite someone you disagree with to lunch. It's easier to be personally offended than to send an encouraging note to someone on the other side. It's easier to be personally offended than to risk getting involved with people who might hurt us. The protagonist in the novel The Shack expresses his frustration with difficult people. Jesus tells him, "All I want from you is trust. Trust me with what little you can and grow in loving people around you with the same love I share with you. It's not your job to change people or convince them. You are free to love without an agenda. Pick up your jar of glass and broken pieces. It's not our job to change people. It's not our job to change people. It's not our job to change people. That's not what we do with all this brokenness. Go out into the world with an agenda to fix things and set things right. The goal is not to get people to be less difficult. Freedom from frustration and fear casts a vote for flexibility, tender strength and endurance fueled by forgiveness. Mac, the main character in The Shack, asked Jesus, "Does that mean that all roads lead to you?" "Not all of them," Jesus answered. "Most roads don't lead anywhere. What it does mean is that I will travel any road to find you." We can step out of all this brokenness about who's wrong, who's out, who's unacceptable, when we know heart and soul that there is never a conversation where God is not in the center of it with us. Next week, we're going to talk about how to vote in this election, and I invite you to bring your jar of dust and broken pieces. We're going to begin to make something with it that will tell us how to cast a vote. In the meantime, in the midst of fiery, tense, potentially volatile times, remember, God chooses to identify with us. In every reality, every conversation, every interaction, it is a chance for us to bring God's presence with us, to create that world of truth, beauty, and goodness. Look at your jar of dust and broken pieces. God is in the story with you, and He's not leaving ever. I will see you next Tuesday.